When it comes to the changes that Yakuza 7 brought to the table, one that is certainly worthy of the highest praise would be its expanded cast. While the sheer magnitude of characters is hardly new territory for this franchise, I feel that this game introduced perhaps the biggest number of characters that immediately became fan favorites. Between Zhao, Saeko, the reintroduced Han Joon-gi, and obviously the leading man, Mr. Dragon Quest himself, this is arguably the most colorful cast we've seen in a while. This privilege even extends to many of the villains, but if I were to point out one character that made the strongest impact, for me, it will be none other than the leader of Geomijul herself, Seonhee. Someone who, despite her limited screen time, made such an impact that it made her one of the top contenders to be a party member in Like a Dragon 8. If you think I'm over-exaggerating, take a look at the behind-the-scenes footage from RGG themselves. There's a reason why she's featured as prominently as the leading cast from 7 here. Seeing as the next mainline entry may very well bring even more nuance and complexity to her character, this felt like a good time to make a video discussing her characterization up to now. Evidently, a large portion of the fanfare she received was also tied to her exceptional character design though, so we might as well address that before anything else. When I saw the concept art for Seonhee before Yakuza 7 was even localized, it gave off a similar vibe to the reveal of Han Joon-gi in Yakuza 6. While the design is not inherently complex or overtly experimental, it certainly feels unique considering the designs of the other major characters in the series. And much like Joon-gi, she immediately stole the show and spawned a dedicated fanbase. At this point, we might as well call this the Jingwon effect, having a beautiful design with an elegant demeanor to serve as the cover for a devious yet entertaining character you can't really hate. This helps toy around with the player's expectations as well, since you know something is off about these two characters, but you can never be too sure what that is. The two of them are masters of reading the room and keeping everyone under control. You'll remember how, upon first meeting her, everyone in Ichiban's party, apart from Saeko, was immediately enamored with her way of speaking and general demeanor. This is why it's so interesting to see her switch between her flirtatious side from back then to the demeanor she presents upon revealing that she is, in fact, the leader of the Geomijul. She switches to a dark, commanding aura you'd expect from a villain who puppeteers everything from behind the scenes. And considering the fact that her organization is 1/3 of the Great Wall that even the mighty Tojo and Omi couldn't breach, this image certainly fits. Though it is unfortunate how the Jingwon as a whole never picked up on the Yakuza tendency of carrying Irezumi, since even for the least enticing villains in the series, such a design, or a lack of one, could tell a lot about the true nature of its bearer. Imagine if Seonhee had an Irezumi with a spider as its main motif. Or better yet, a spider web where legendary creatures like a dragon or an Ashura are helplessly trapped. It would certainly fit with the urban legends associated with the Geomijul and reinforce the darker side to their activities, seemingly a remnant of their Jingwon upbringing. But that's enough of theorizing, for a character can't just thrive off of appearance alone, much like a boss shouldn't be carried purely by their respective theme. So, let's finally take a look at Seonhee's role in the narrative. Initially, the Geomijul arguably had the darkest rumors surrounding them, which says a lot considering the actions that were taken by both the Seiryu clan and the Liumang throughout the story. Geomijul is the organization that operates from the shadows. They need no flashy badges or uniforms. They're essentially a faceless entity that you just know you should steer clear from. So it makes sense that the leader of such a group would stick to the shadows as well. She doesn't go on expository tangents about some greater plans to take over the world. Rather, she's surgically precise with what she says and how she acts around people, including her own underlings. To an extent, this can be the most terrifying thing to witness in action, because you're not gonna have your usual lengthy build-up to a dramatic betrayal. When Ichiban was questioned about the source of the counterfeit bill, she immediately pointed a gun at him and made sure that no one could intervene. If Ichiban weren't so open and honest by default, this conversation could have ended their new adventure right then and there. But the two of them immediately reached an understanding. In fact, you could tell that one of the reasons Seonhee took a liking towards Ichiban in the end is because neither of them carried a proverbial mask in this exchange. There were no pretenses whatsoever, which is why we see her showing genuine hospitality towards Ichiban once she thought she figured him out. And then, within a matter of seconds, she snapped like a viper.
でもお前は違うな。なんぼ
If you have a group as infamous as the Geomijul bow down before this person, no questions asked, then you absolutely should be afraid of ever angering her. There was no good cop, bad cop present, just a direct threat: speak now or die. And I love that. She commands respect from the second she reveals herself to the group, specifically through her actions. She has no problem proving that she is, in fact, the mysterious leader of these lunatics, because this is genuinely entertaining to her. Like a spider toying with their prey and always being in control. It was only after Ichiban behaved in a rather illogical manner that the situation drastically changed for everyone involved. Though, I think most Yakuza villains would be helplessly disarmed by Ichiban's optimism. Hell, even someone who is constantly in control, like Seonhee, was taken aback that Ichiban would go so far out of his way for a guy who literally admitted to lying to him from the moment they've met. But ultimately, this reveal is just another piece of info she could use to her advantage down the line if she really wanted to. And I'd love to see what a character like her could do in the role of a main villain, because again, even if things go awry, she doesn't back down or look away from the problem. Though this might be an exaggeration on my part, as there is one moment in the story where she was admittedly out of options. And at that moment, where the people of Geomijul were truly at risk, was where so much of her dormant character nuance was finally shown. Despite the weight of her status, she had no problem throwing it away, if it meant protecting something dear to her. And this genuine humility is something we rarely see from someone who is not the final boss. Most of the power-hungry characters in Yakuza would be too prideful to bow to anyone or show weakness, but would still be painted as tragic victims to garner sympathy on occasion. But Seonhee's ties to the Jingwon make this matter much more complex. Despite numerous appearances from the Mafia, we really don't know that much about the people who were born into that life. All we know is the Jingwon's ruthless nature, whether they're facing an enemy or a deserter. So when you see someone fighting tooth and nail to preserve this new life, this shot for the strays who were originally born to kill, to finally find their peace, it means something. Seonhee will bow her head to a group who are practically strangers to her if there's even the slightest chance this could help her people. She will literally discard her entire information network, the biggest ace that they have up their sleeve, to maintain their position in the Ijin 3, if it means that those who depend on her can live on. This is why she is so revered. She doesn't immerse herself in delusions of grandeur like other villains. She isn't afraid of facing reality, even if it leads to her undoing. These are the makings of a true leader and a great character. Keep in mind that all of this came from someone whom we've never fought one-on-one. A character whose personal story is a complete mystery. We have no idea who Seonhee really is, behind her role as the Geomijul leader, and later on, the leader of the Liumang remnants as well. But if a guy like Zhao has full faith in you, then you know you're a one-of-a-kind person. She captivated the audience in a similar way as Majima did all the way back in the original Yakuza. These characters didn't ask for the spotlight, yet the spotlight itself was literally made for them. This is why I believe that you don't need a ton of screen time to make someone memorable or feel developed. Just look at the final boss of Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. All you really need is impact. And since we're talking about impact, I'd like to take a moment to shine the light on an unsung hero behind this devious spider. In the same way how Kuroda Takaya was literally the embodiment of Kiryu Kazuma, Seonhee's voice actress Hana Takeda is what makes this character so amazing. While many of the seiyuu in Yakuza have found fame in other media, for example doing anime voiceovers, Takeda-san hasn't really appeared in that many projects, and she's rarely in the leading role. This genuinely boggles my mind, as just from her portrayal of Seonhee, you can tell that she has one hell of a vocal range. Not only does she have the range, But there are also subtle nuances in her performances, going from being authoritative to seductive to kind and sympathetic. The delivery in her lines has this sense of clarity that can rarely be achieved, even with a wide tonal range. Yet, she nailed every character performance that I've heard from her thus far. Like, she even voices Chowder in the Japanese dub of that show, which couldn't be further apart from Seong-hee's cadence. I really hope that this talent of hers gets wider recognition in the seiyuu world with time. And there's one last thing I'd like to add. Hana Takeda has a YouTube channel where she streams various RPG games and even did a phenomenal cover of the song Yoidore Shirazu by the songwriter Kanaria. So if Seong-hee really becomes a party member in Like a Dragon 8, and you're curious about her singing abilities, check this out. You won't be disappointed. With that, I'd like to conclude this video. Once the new games drop, you can be certain that I'll make a detailed analysis to update what was discussed here. My most sincere gratitude goes to the YouTube members shown here, which you're welcome to join if you'd like. It helps out in more ways than I could describe. Anyway, that's all from me. So, until next time, take care of yourselves and have a great day. Cheers!